Hello learners, in today's video we'll talk about an editorial which is asking or which is talking about the cross-border insolvency and what legal reforms has to be done in order to tackle that particular problem. So we know that globalization always is spoken on the positive aspects, but coming to negative aspects, one of the negative aspects would be about the cross-border insolvency. So what exactly is cross-border insolvency? Whenever there is a situation where an insolvent debtor, that means he don't have money, he's done with his money, especially a businessman who has that particular individual having assets or creditors in multiple countries, that then it is called as cross-border insolvency. Suppose person A is doing business globally. He has multiple businesses in multiple countries. Now he goes insolvent. So now he is not just insolvent to a particular bank of country one, but also he is getting insolvent in another multiple countries as well. That is when this phenomena is called as cross-border insolvency. And a significant issue because due to the increasing globalization where businesses are across the borders, irrespective of borders, the businesses are getting globalized. So this is a main reason for this particular phenomena. And in India, we have a policy or an act or a code which is called Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of 2016, which deals with mostly of the insolvency, but do not have an extensive framework regarding the cross-border insolvency. We do have about the domestic aspect, but not about the international cases. So that lies a problem, and it lies an important because there is an increase seen in this particular phenomena. We don't have a framework. Obviously, it is time for us to discuss about it. So what is the current framework? As I said, IBC 2016 focuses mainly on the domestic insolvency, and there are only two sections of this particular code which deals with the international cases, which are 234 section and section 235, which says that 234 is just talking about that we can have a bilateral agreement with particular country, and in 235 it is saying that Indian insolvency courts can request assistance from foreign courts. That's all. Except these, we do not have anything which is regarding to the foreign cases. And because of that, what is the challenge? There is no unified framework for recognizing the foreign insolvency proceedings. And we have to depend on particular bilateral treaty, and which are time consuming and limited in scope. So this is lying delay. This is making delay in the resolution because we do not have a proper procedural clarity, and also we do not have a proper framework. So what are the proposed legal frameworks? We already have something on the global front. So on the global front, we have something, and there are some certain kind of proposed legal frameworks for us to be followed. One such is called United Nations Commission on the International Trade Law. So they have something called a model law which talks about insolvency, and who recommended that? Insolvency Law Committee has said that we need to go and check whatever that people are following. And what are the key features? First, it talks about the access. The foreign insolvency professionals can have access to the Indian courts. Second feature is about the recognition. Indian courts can be recognized foreign insolvency proceedings, main or non-main. What is the difference between main or non-main? What are these terms? There is something called central main and central non-main. Means wherever the country or the company has lot of profits or money or the involvement, that is called main, and the rest of the part is called non-main. So whether it be main or non-main, but Indian courts should or can be having recognition from the foreign insolvency aspect. And what is a relief? Indian courts can grant reliefs for foreign proceedings. What is a cooperation? We already have that we can follow, or we have to follow bilateral agreements. Here it is facilitating coordination between Indian and foreign courts. That was already the existing, is talking about the bilateral agreements between the two countries. Now they are saying, or the cooperation is there according to the model law, that two courts also can have the coordination. And by this, what do we have an advantage? It provides predictability and consistency. It will reduce litigation and will enhance the creditors' confidence, because a bank from a particular country or particular region can't go beyond the borders. It's very difficult for them until and unless they are very big banks. So the creditor confidence can happen when we follow such kind of models. And also it will boost the FDIs obviously by aligning with global standards, because that itself is a global law. Now, draft amendments, what are the more? As I said, there are certain kinds of proposed legal frameworks. Certain kinds of draft amendments are there, which is trying to include the cross-border insolvency provision in the IBC. A try has been made to recognize the foreign judgments under reciprocity. Whatever the drafts were being made, they were being considered by that model law and also by the foreign judgments and cooperation mechanisms between Indian and foreign courts. So the try has already been, but the more action has to be come into the picture. So there are certain kind of case studies where the cross-border insolvency has happened. Example, Jet Airways India Limited, wherein the issue involving India and the Netherlands country, and it highlighted very need of the legal clarity and cooperation regarding the cross-border insolvency. And also the Videocon Industries, the Indian creditors sought to recover dues from the assets in foreign jurisdiction. This demonstrated the inefficiencies of the current framework. So these two are the best case studies for cross-border insolvency, and by this we need to learn that it's high time that we need to have a robust framework in this particular issue. And what is the global practices? Already we have a model law, and the countries like US, UK and Singapore, they have adopted that model law, and their framework allows for seamless cooperation and quick resolution in this particular cases. Now, what are the current developments happening? I said that the draft amendments are there, and the amendments under consideration are, according to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, it has sought the public comments on whatever the draft were being made. It has made public so that people can also involve. And this proposal to align with this model law have gained traction. High kind of a recommendation being made all across. Now, also in G20, and whenever we are having a global cooperation, India's leadership in G20 emphasized that we shall have some kind of a uniformity in regarding to the cross-border insolvency, so that we can enhance the ease of doing business and we can contribute to the economic growth of each others. But there lie challenges for everything. On paper, it seems effortless, but coming to implementation, it becomes impossible. And what are the jurisdictional conflicts? Overlapping claims between Indian and foreign jurisdictions. Obviously, we have certain different laws. That's why India has proposed a uniformity, certain kind of uniformity, at least on the core things of the issue. So there can be jurisdiction overlapping when there is no uniformity and lack of expertise. We need proper specialized judges and insolvency professionals if you have to deal such kind of issues. And also the protection of domestic stakeholders. Concerns over foreign creditors undermining Indian interest. Obviously, the law which is made in the land, that people will be getting benefited, or kind of a favoritism, that can also be an issue. So what more can be done, or what is the kind of a solution to be done other than the whatever legal frameworks or certain kinds? It can be, first of all, we need to have a proper professionals or judicial professionals. They have to be trained in this particular aspect. As now we know that we have separate professionals for IPR. In the same way, it's high time that we have the training done, which is the capacity building, and bilateral and multilateral treaties has to be strengthened more. And more importantly, it should be taken care of the uniformity, since everybody will get involved. That we have to have a legal framework comprehensively taking care of everything and accounting for the foreign judiciaries or foreign judgments as well while framing the framework. And technological use. Obviously, modern problems need modern solution. We need to see that technological aspects or that strength also can be used to tackle this particular problem. So, ultimately, it is to be told that we need a robust framework with the uniformity and taking that model law as an example so that we can tackle or we can reap the benefits of globalization, but that model law has to be framed in a localized manner. In that way, everybody can reap the benefits of globalization while tackling the cross-border insolvency. This is all about the editorial which was talking about it, and it's a very core part of the economy, and we'll see what is the relevance. In GS2, the governance, the legal reforms and the international relations part. GS3, economic reforms, very important. The global trade dynamics, very important, and ease of doing business. And as I said, the Videocon Industries and Jet Airways, that can be used as case studies in this particular thing. Thank you.